Start a new little short series as we kind of close out the year. And I want us to focus in on just a little period of history that occurs in the Old Testament. If we know the story of God's people in the Old Testament, we know that you can trace us all the way back to Genesis and how God's people ended up in Egypt. And there came a time in Egypt when God's people, the Israelites, were enslaved for a period of many years. And eventually God is going to bring them out of this slavery. He's going to take them to the promised land. He's going to take them back to the land that He has promised to their forefathers and bring them into this land. There's some trouble along the way that occurs, but finally they get back to this land that God has promised them. And at this time, we get the book of Judges. And the book of Judges kind of explains what goes on in this period of history, especially after Joshua and Caleb, who are the leaders of Israel after Moses. It explains what's going on during this time with generation after generation of Israelites going through a spiral of sinning and then being punished and then calling out for salvation from God and repenting, and God sends salvation for them, and then they come back, and then the next generation drops the ball and they go into sin, and it just kind of becomes this spiral that gets more and more out of control as time goes on of all these things that happen throughout the book of Judges. But kind of a key thought throughout the entire book is summed up in the very last verse, and this appears several times, but at the end of the book of Judges it says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." Like I said, this appears a few times in the book of Judges. But when we read something, it allows us to kind of figure out some of the things that are going on in the background, and we can understand a little bit about what is going on, not just in the text itself, but about who wrote it. Because for you to make a statement like this, clearly you're looking back, and you're looking back on this time and saying, at that time there was no king in Israel. So it tells me that at the time that this book is being written, there is a king in Israel, right? Because otherwise that statement doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you're looking back and saying, hey, at this time there was no king in Israel. Well, how does it get to the point where Israel gets a king? And who's the first guy? How does all of this start with Israel having a actual king sitting on the throne in Israel? That's where our lesson is going to start today. Now, if you remember our Judges song, which is one of my favorite songs, but the last judge we have is going to be Samuel. And as time goes on, people decide they don't really like Samuel being a judge all that much. They don't really prefer this system to. They kind of look around and they see everybody else and they say, everybody else has got a king. Wouldn't that be nice if that's what we had? You look at what other people have, and it's really easy for us to say, ooh, that'd be nice if we had it like they have it. They seem to have it great over there. Now, maybe you don't see everything that goes on over there, but the people of Israel do this. They look over there and they say, wouldn't it be great if we had a king? And, well, here's the response when the people come to Samuel. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, and most of our lesson today is going to be in 1 Samuel. So if you turn through 1 Samuel, we'll mostly be going through several chapters here. But 1 Samuel chapter 8, starting in verse 6, "But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, 'Give us a king to obey the voice of the people and all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. According to all the deeds that they have done, from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing to you. Now then obey their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. And as this text goes on, if you read this, Samuel goes on and he warns them specifically, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have taxes, you're going to have wars, you're going to have misuse of government. This is not going to go well for you, it's not going to go well for your kids and your grandkids. This is not a good decision right here. You're going to have selfish leaders who do not care about you one bit. And then at the end of it all, verse 19, but the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. And they said, no, but there shall be a king over us, that we may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. It's at this point that we are introduced to the man who is going to become king. God tells Samuel, don't worry, they've not rejected you, they've rejected me. And then God says, hey, what you need to do is you need to expect there's going to be a man who comes